Well, I think one of the problems we face as Americans is the indoctrination, of our education system and the kind of perspective with which we look at this country. And so I'd ask people to imagine, you know, do you think it would be authoritarian to kind of roll up on a continent, destroy everybody living there, and then institute a complete and total system of colonization and capitalism? Right? And what about slavery and Jim Crow and why our black brothers and sisters have had to fight so hard for civil rights? And so I think when we think of our country and we think of this experiment in freedom, we're thinking of it from the European American perspective. And when we start to understand Native Americans and also black people are actually human beings, the history of the American government and the history of American culture shifts from this thing being about freedom to this thing being about freedom for one group and not for the others. And what that is authoritarianism. That in a very real way, the way that we look at this country is just actually skewed by our education system and by our historical perspective. And so I think you're totally right. I mean, certainly, like you're right, but I don't think they're sleeping walking into a dictatorship. I think that this is actually a fundamental animating principle is inequality in the United States of America, regardless of what our founding document says. Has anybody ever questioned like why civil rights has been a fight in a country that wrote that founding document? So I think when we look critically at our history and we expand the historical perspective outside of the lens of European Americans, we begin to see that this is about race, right? Specifically, I look at it like the 60s and 70s, the civil rights era, the 50s maybe, was about getting our black brothers and sisters into the voting process, right? This new front that was kind of like set off by Obama is about who gets to actually govern us. And so I always point to the logic of drained pool politics, which is, say there were these pools during segregation that were whites only, and then they would desegregate them. The white community would rather fill the pool with concrete than share it with our black brothers and sisters. And so, because there was a black guy in the presidency, in the White House, they want to fill the White House with concrete. And that concrete is actually orange in color and named Donald Trump. They want to destroy the thing that led to a black president, right? They're literally in a fight or flight like trauma response because they had their internal feelings of safety destabilized by having the racial hierarchy upended by the non-white president. And so um, it's not mainstreamed because our culture is rooted in oppression and rooted in inequality, but drowning in propaganda and indoctrination and blindness, like culturally conditioned blindness to these issues. And it's always, I mean, think of Trump as just white privilege. I mean, like, think of what's happened. Think of the privilege of somebody doing what Trump has done, right? Everything he did during his presidency, but then he attempts a coup and he doesn't get in trouble yet and he's still able to run for president. This is all privilege. Trump is there to preserve the privilege, preserve the racial hierarchy, make America great again. And the problem is that when we think of like a lot of the things that Republicans talk about in the founding, they're actually true because we as non-Republicans or whatever, we're still infected by the kind of American exceptionalist mythology. And so um, we don't have a culture that wants to know these things, right? It doesn't sell copy or it doesn't sell media products or it's not in their kind of mission statement. But we have body dysmorphia, and for hundreds of years we've kind of like ignored the reality of this country and just rested in the rhetoric. It's the tyranny of the written word in white supremacy, right? Where it matters what's said, not what happens, how we frame things. I was just watching this clip of Ben Shapiro getting owned, and he's talking to somebody who's trans. He's saying, well, definitionally. Okay, but like that's words. Words are the map, reality is the territory. And so America has been living in the map and not the territory for so long that we have all of this cultural body dysmorphia.